Alrighty, welcome back. Seems like I cannot get myself off of this stage. Guys, welcome back. We are still here live at Connect Live, in Nashville. So hi to everybody in the room. Hope everybody's feeling okay. How's everybody feeling? You guys look still pretty nice and refreshed. I'm like fading by the second, but we're having a good time. So to those of you who are back and who've been with us since this morning, welcome back. To those of you, I see some new faces out in the audience, so welcome. And to all of our friends and family and everybody streaming live around the world on Avid link or avid.com, thank you. Welcome back. Hope everybody's doing all right. So we've had a great day so far. We've got one more panel for the day. And I'm really excited about, I've been excited about all of them. I am also very excited about this one. We are going to be doing having a panel right now on Dolby Atmos, specifically based around music. So we're going to have some of our really amazing talent come out, and I'm going to introduce them in just a second. But I did just want to call out, and just as a reminder, we are here at Belmont University at the Johnson Center. We are in the large theater, and the great thing about this theater, other than it's amazing, and everyone here has been so amazing, is the fact that this room is actually a Dolby Atmos theater. So we're really stoked about that. Again, we want to thank Belmont University for having us. We're very, very, very grateful. So let's get right into it. Dolby Atmos. Who here is into it? That should be a show of everybody's hands. So it's been really an amazing, time seeing what Dolby's been doing with Atmos. Certainly on the audio side, even on the vision side with Dolby Vision and what's been going on there. They've been doing some really amazing work. We are proud here at Avid to partner with them. We've got Dolby Atmos workflows built into Pro Tools Ultimate, and we couldn't be happier for that. Obviously, most people are very familiar with Dolby Atmos, certainly in film, post, and certainly now getting into the television space. And I think some of the newer stuff, what's been happening now, and what we're going to talk through a little bit today in this panel and also in the breakout panel, is the idea of Dolby Atmos for music and what that means for us. So myself as an artist, I am going to be doing some Dolby Atmos work from my next album, and I'm really excited about that. So without further ado, I'd like to bring out my esteemed panel. I'm going to bring them out one at a time. So first up, you saw him and heard him a little bit earlier. Please welcome back to the stage from Dolby Music, Mr. Ceri Thomas. Ceri, come on out. How are you, sir? Doing all right? All right. We'll have you go. Actually, go wherever you like. You do that. Okay. So we've got a couple other folks here, and we're very excited to have them. This next gentleman is a good friend of mine. He's an electronic dance music producer and DJ, and just a really great, funny dude. He doesn't think of himself as funny, but he is. He's actually been doing a ton of work. He's actually the guy that got me interested in Dolby Atmos for music. Please welcome to the stage, Mr. Matt Lange. What's up?
Hello.
How are you, man?
Good. Good to see you as always.
Good. You too. And last but certainly not least, we've got he is a local, he's a Nashville local, doing a ton of really amazing Dolby Atmos work, and he's going to talk about some of that. We're very, very, very excited, and we're honored to have Mr. Colin Heldt with us. Colin, come on out. Good to see you, Colin. Welcome.
See you.
Welcome. Have a seat. So we're going to do this in Atmos. We're going to have Colin's voice. No, just kidding. So welcome, guys. How you guys feeling? How's everybody doing?
Good.
So, again, you guys saw, Ceri was here this morning. I'm surprised that he's still standing. He's been here since last week. But it is Nashville, so it's not, it's not like we're, it's not too bad. It's
the commute doesn't suck.
No, it's not too shabby. So we'll go through and do a little bit of introductions, and we'll actually start again with you, Ceri, and we've got some new folks here and some new folks streaming. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I'm responsible in terms of Dolby for content and studio enablement. So I work with music studios here and around the world to ensure that they understand what the tool set is and how to best utilize it to mix their tracks in Dolby Atmos.
Cool. Matt.
I'm Matt Lange. I am a producer, artist, composer, sound designer, and too many other hats. and I've been working in Atmos for just about 5 years now. Dolby, they have a project actually in the electronic sphere where they put Atmos into clubs. So over the course of a number of years, I've mixed probably 30 of my own records into Atmos that could actually then be performed live in Atmos in places like, for me, I've done it in London and Chicago. So Atmos has been a really enjoyable format, and I mean, it's a really mind-blowing format for me as a creative as well.
Awesome. Colin?
So I'm a mix engineer based out of Nashville, and I've been working for the last, 8 months or so in Atmos, and I think I've lost count at this point of how many Atmos mixes I've done. I've been kind of hunkered down, mixing like crazy lately, turning out content. So it's been a lot of fun to explore Atmos and adapt music into this new format.
So yeah, Colin, let me kind of start with you. You know, you said you've kind of you started about 8 months ago.
Yeah.
What was the transition from, traditional mixing into now working in an Atmos type of workflow? What was that like for you? What was that transition like?
It's been a lot of fun to do. It's been a very exploratory thing. I got a rudimentary start of, how to do it, and then I've sort of just experimented with things as I go forward, and really have sort of settled on a few things that I've really liked and really enjoyed doing with it, and it's been really nice to use it in a different way than mixing in stereo. Really opens up what you can do with the music and spreading things around and not having to necessarily treat EQ in the same sort of carving sort of ways that you normally work. Yeah.
Did you find at first, that your, obviously, your world kind of opens up almost kind of literally in a sense.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself kind of going back and thinking about new ways of using objects and moving things a little bit differently, or were you kind of like you had an idea immediately as you started approaching projects? Is that?
It's kind of come naturally where it's, you hear a song and it's sort of, I think this would work if this was here and that's there, and you sort of, similar to the way you would do it as a stereo mix, but it's just there's so many more possibilities, and there's really no rules with it being a new format. So
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with throwing a vocal in the back of the room, you have your lead vocal driving from behind you, and it's and it just opens up so many new ways of looking at it, the way you could mix a song. And so, a lot of times I'll start with the mix, the stereo mix, and sort of imagine what it could turn into. And sometimes, you have a vision in your head, and you try it all out, and you put all these things in place, and it's like, that did not work. So, and so you kind of have to rethink and reshuffle things around. And so, there's a lot of similarities to mixing in stereo, but then there's a lot of things that are very, very different.
So I want to ask you one follow-up question, and I want to jump to Matt because I want to ask him similar thing. So the stuff that you're mixing, these are for other artists, and for the label, you can, I'll let you kind of discuss who, if you want to mention who those are.
Sure.
Let me just check my mic here. Sorry. Do you get a lot of guidance from the label or from the artists? How they kind of re-envision going back to some of the catalog and working on it, or did they kind of like, hey, Colin, do what you do? Is there a combination of that?
It's mostly up to my discretion at this point.
Okay.
And so I've been working with Universal Music Group, and so I've been doing all that catalog material with major artists. And at this point, the way we're working it is we're turning out the content, and then we're getting approvals.
Okay.
Afterwards. And so, there will be an open forum for feedback to come and adjustments to be made if we're not nailing the creative intent of what it should end up as. So.
Sure. So Matt, for you, I mean, you're mixing your own music. You're going back. Well, in the case of some of the older stuff,
Sure.
You went back and kind of approached it from that aspect of kind of now going in and doing Atmos, but the album was already done at that point. So what was that like for you? And it's your own material, and you'd already created it. It was already birthed. It was already out there. What was that like for you?
The context of I remixed an album I did called Ephemera entirely into Atmos first, and again, that was for the sake of performing it live. So there was only one rule, and that was that there needed to be a kick drum right dead center, because this was going to be for a club anyway. And the thing that's kind of funny about also Atmos in a club too is unless you are just really in the sweet spot of Atmos, really in the center of the club, you're going to miss a lot of it. But consequently, you need to have a kick drum pretty much dead center. That's the only thing that matters. Everything else, I could have complete freedom, and I didn't have to think about what this would sound like if I had an acoustic guitar player or something like that. I mean, I could zing different things around my head at any time I wanted, and it really it gave me a ton of freedom. Where my mixes already are usually really spatially wide, and I was able to take things that were already pretty extreme and just put them beyond a whole new dimension, where I could suddenly have like little sound effects and little bits of percussion that I could automate, or using a step sequencer within an Atmos plugin that would just every eighth note jump here, 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 and then take a sound effect that goes, and then that would all suck into something else. So it was a really, it's far beyond a technical tool. It's a really creative tool. And as someone who loves spatialization and automation and overtly complicated things, it kind of is dangerous for me, probably.
So I think one of the things that we, in the field, we hear a lot about, when we're showing Atmos, one of the Avid, any of the Avid booths will have like a halo with big, thing set up with an Atmos system, and folks will come and they'll sit at the S6 and they'll kind of, they'll play back, and maybe they're playing back one of your tracks, and they're like, okay, well, how do I do this? And I'm super scared. Like, I don't think I can do this. That's a pretty big undertaking to kind of introduce this format and this ability, this workflow to the world. One of the ideas I wanted to be able to do here, and you guys have actually helped do that a little bit here, but I want to hear from you, Ceri. How do we really go out and continue demystifying the idea that this is hard? Not that it's not. It's a lot of work to do it, because you want to get it right. But it's the same as if you were just mixing a stereo track. But how do you got a heavy load there? How are you going to do that?
It's actually an awful lot easier than you'd imagine. So getting started in Atmos mixing is as simple as the $300 production suite that is available on the Avid store, and a Pro Tools session. You don't actually have to have all of the speakers. There's a headphone mode. There's a stereo output that's being constantly re-rendered. So you can get to a pretty good starting point where you're able to pan objects, pan things into the bed, and understand what the spatial domain is going to add to your track. So some of the separation of elements that Colin represented in his presentation was, you get a sense of how to carve things out without needing to carve it out with EQ, and without needing to rely on the dynamics. Allow the track to breathe, allow it to be what it is needing to be in the space that you have. And so from that you can get pretty elaborate in your system setups. So it's a scalable system, though. So you can take what you've done in that laptop, bring it into a room like this, and you're mixing in a theatrical room where there's 42 speakers in this room. The renderer does the job of scaling that up and scaling it down. So you're just mixing a track in space, and it works.
So you mentioned the renderer. Give us a little bit of a primer. I know you and Colin have the breakout after, but maybe just a quick primer of what the tools are. Maybe the definition of objects, and really what differentiates Dolby Atmos from traditional static surround.
Sure. So Atmos is a channel-independent rendering format. Okay, so you don't think of it as stereo, 5.1, 7.1, 9.1.6, any of those things. And the renderer unit that we talk about is basically a black box, right? So what goes in is very different than what will come out, because it calculates according to the space that you've given it, and where those speakers are placed and how you're listening to it, what that input set needs to be converted to. So the The channel-based component of it we refer to as the bed. So there are 10 channels at the beginning of the renderer that need to be these bed configurations. So it doesn't have to be a 712, but it most often is. So if you want to create a 5.1 bed, great. After channel 11, it becomes an option to have objects or beds and whatever configuration you want. An object will allow you to define using metadata the size of it, the location of that sound source, the height of it, and whether you want it to go into all the speakers, some of the speakers, none of the speaker locations. And it's a really powerful tool to say to allow you to control the sound field of your mix, and it does all of the other magic after it as well.
Sure. So obviously we'll get to see some of that in the breakout. I wanted to come back to you, Matt, for a second, because we talked about you having gone back into remix an album that was already done,
sure,
and approach Dolby Atmos there. But for some of your newer work, we had talked, and I know you kind of went into the creative space with Atmos in mind. What was that like, kind of going into knowing that you had this ability to do that?
Well, it changes how you write, and this is, I used to write in 5.1 a long time ago, so I was pretty already accustomed to the idea of writing parts specifically for an independent output. And when you start writing with spatialization and really extreme spatialization involved, it changes the creative process entirely. So when I've used Atmos for newer work, I've written it all in stereo, and then pretty soon after, and I'll do a final mix in stereo too, and then soon after that, I've taken that over to Dolby, and then we've done it there. But it's, it seems silly to even talk about. You just have to kind of experience it, and then it's breathtaking. There's really no other way to put it.
Is that something you think, you've been working on a ton of new material, there's a new album, et cetera. Do you feel like it's going to be typically a part of your typical workflow, your workflow
for any major project of mine, I will do Atmos, and really that's honestly for my own hedonistic reasons as well. But it's such a turn on to be able to sit in that room and to hear your own work. It's like the first time you take a score and have that performed to you in front of a 60-piece orchestra or something. It's otherworldly.
That's a good way to kind of think about it. Colin, I wanted to go backwards a little bit. You kind of mentioned that the last 8 months you've been working in Atmos, but I wanted to go all the way back into how you got started, in the music field, and kind of take us, kind of right up to where you started. We'll get to how you started mixing in Atmos, but how did you get started? Did you start off as an engineer? What's your?
Yeah, so I went to an audio engineering school, to a 4-year college, got a bachelor's degree in that. Started my last semester as an intern and sort of worked my way through that, and sort of ended up taking up the staff engineer job at that studio, and so worked as a staff engineer there for a long time, and then was freelance for a little while, and then took another staff engineer job, and then got hired on with UMG, and so then now I've been the head engineer at this facility for the last 8 months now.
Okay.
And so we pretty much started in the Atmos world from the get-go.
So you opened the door like for day one, and it's Atmos.
We pretty quickly we started building an Atmos room, and that was a quick. Ceri will attest to the fact that was a quick build out that we did there.
Might be the fastest Atmos room build we've done.
Yeah, we
5 days from start.
Really?
To finish.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it tell us a little bit about the room? Was it a repurposed room?
Well, it used to be in Memphis.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. So when it was House of Blues, Gary picked it up and moved it here. So it's a shotgun shack at the House of Blues, and Art Kelm, who's the I forget what his title is currently, but he's vice president of studio technology something at Universal Music Group. Went, that's the room that we're going to do, and I think to Colin's concern. One of the first times he met Art, he walked into the room in Studio D and just took a knife down the cloth and went, "That's where the speaker's going to go." It didn't look pretty at the end, but it was functional. And Colin just started mixing. Colin and David Lange had started mixing content in there. It served its need until they built the one up the hill, and then they moved all of that equipment into Studio E and redid Studio D, and it's now a beautiful looking room. So,
now it's the permanent Studio D Atmos room. So
very cool. So can you tell us a little bit about some of the projects you've done, or is that still kind of top secret, or?
I don't know.
Question.
I mean, you can say no. Coming soon.
I'm totally happy for Colin to speak to the projects that he's mixed.
No, I've been working on a lot of
back catalog
items. Anything from some stuff that's coming off of analog, 24-track stuff, and starting from that. And
are you doing the pull as well, or is that that's
no?
all?
I'm usually getting a Pro Tools file, which would be the 24 tracks, and then sometimes a picture of the box for the 2-inch, and sort of working from that. And a lot of times you kind of build from a stereo mix and work into the Atmos world from there. But yeah, so I'm not sure how many artists I can say, but
I don't want to get you in any trouble.
Yeah.
Well, so today we're going to be using a track by Chantal Jeffries called "Wait," and it's a quick call and answer kind of deal. And as Colin said, that's in the track, right? So some of the things that he did just were already there, and
sort of imagining what if they had the tool to do Atmos in the original stereo mix, what would they do? And that kind of thing. And that's what I'm trying to do.
That's
with
a pretty
my
cool.
mixes,
It's a pretty cool thing to kind of pretend or kind of think about if the artists were here in the room, how would they approach it? And that's not I'm sure not an easy thing, but I think that's a pretty cool thing. Matt, you and I have home studios. Do you consider the idea of kind of refitting the room out for Atmos?
I would need a bigger home.
Ceri, Matt needs a bigger home.
Okay.
We put it in the Dolby budget.
No. Dolby do not build studios. I facilitate.
You facilitate.
It'll be a tax write-off.
There you go.
No, the reality for me is my studio. It's covered, wall to wall with instruments and keyboards and guitars, and I'm at the point where I've started to actually just have to. Anything I buy has to now live on the floor because I don't have any other space.
Totally. Yeah.
So yeah.
Well,
we could float Atmos.
Guitars have bodies and necks. You can fit a speaker right there.
Put the speaker in the guitar. So Matt, since you've been working in Atmos for a while, probably longer than most anyone I know. So you've had the experience before. We partnered with Dolby and actually brought the workflow into Pro Tools Ultimate. You worked with it, with the renderer and all the different kinds of ways. Can you give us a quick comparison of what it was like before? It was obviously still very exciting, but kind of comparing that to having it live inside of Pro Tools and then having it kind of there.
Truthfully, I use it the same way now as I used it 5 years ago.
That's really the idea, right? We did not want to really change. We did want to make it easier to kind of have everything under kind of, in a sense.
Yeah. Now you have an integrated panner, and I still use the Dolby one anyway because I just
you love it.
I love it. If it's not broken, don't fix it, and it never broke for me. So.
Yeah. I think that's a fair statement. The Dolby panel still works in the way that it always did.
Sure.
The option to use the integrated panning is great, and it's done a really good job. When I sit down with somebody to start diving into what is a possibility in Atmos, I start in the integrated panner. But there was a mixer in Glendale who was working on an album recently, and he went, and he works in film. He's very familiar with the integrated panning. He went, I need your secret panner. And so we gave him the same panner that Matt's been using with EDM stuff, which has a really cool step sequencer, and watch this space for more information.
Cool.
But the things that he was doing with it were pretty crazy. So he has sources that cross over and then flip back round and come back down, and it's like, okay, well, that would have taken me a week to draw, but I can do it here. Sync to time code, and it's
Cool,
sync to MIDI, and it's really cool.
Right. So I want to ask, Ceri, like, what's next? But I think what I will ask is, you've had, being at Dolby, you get to kind of stand over the shoulders of a lot of these guys when they're mixing on the post side and certainly on the music side. Yeah. So we know that the post guys typically have, an idea of surround workflow and what they want to achieve. Do you find that you at Dolby, like, kind of representing Dolby when you're there, getting to watch folks take some stuff back to the lab and it informs how you guys work on the stuff?
Honestly, my role is not one that's necessarily in the studio with people, because that's not very creative, right? I don't want me sat there going, oh, try this, try that. So I go, okay, here's an enablement. What you do with it is up to you. If you need help, here's my cell phone. So, it's most often then a case of, great, I'm going to meet up with Colin, meet up with Matt, and go, what did you like about this? What didn't you like about this? Did this hurt? Those sort of things. And then that's the feedback that we take back to the lab. So, when as we've been getting more and more music mixers on board, the feedback has been really crystallizing. So things that everybody mistook for reality have been brought to the fore. So we're looking at fixing that and things like that. So, but part of what I get to do is help them to understand how other people are working. So the feedback that I get from Colin or David or Greg Penny or Steve Genowick is, hey, this thing I found is really cool, and they tell me about it, and I go, great, do you mind if I share? And that's how this thing moves, right? So it's not just about how many studios we can build and how many pieces of content we can get out. It's what have you learned that other people can learn from?
Can take and learn from. So yeah, you mentioned studios. Here in Nashville, I come here pretty regularly, and it's been really interesting over the past couple of years, really the last year and a half or so, to see how many more Atmos rooms there are. I mean, there's several rooms here now. You just finished another one. What does that mean, to you as a I'm assuming, I shouldn't assume. Were you born and grew up in Nashville, or?
No, I didn't born and grow up, but yeah. But I've been here for a long time, 20 plus years. Yeah. So I've seen Nashville change. That's for sure.
And what does it mean to you to kind of see what's going on with Atmos? I mean, here in Nashville.
It's really exciting. I think it's it's certainly gaining a lot of steam, and it's really exciting, and it's really fun to share with people, and have it's such a difficult thing to describe. You can talk to somebody about it all day long, but until you sit them in a room and sit them in that chair and then go, check this out, and you press play, and then it's that aha moment that people get when they're like, oh wow, this is incredible. Like this is something, and then that's the feedback you get from them. Like, oh, well, you were telling me about it, and you're trying to describe it, but it's until you hear it, it's just like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing here,
Yeah, totally. And I'm looking forward to coming back and seeing even more rooms. Matt, for you, the idea of putting something out, that's a music project that's in Dolby Atmos. What's your hope? Is your hope that as an artist that becomes kind of the standard, or like right neck and neck with a typical normal stereo thing, or is it just a totally creative thing and you're not?
I don't know. It's really not for me to say, which way.
It is for you to say.
Or I don't.
As an artist, it's for you to say.
I mean, just as far as mass acceptance of a bigger format, as we've all seen culturally. We went from going into a wider format into listening to a piece of shit out of your phone.
Yep.
So I don't really know. But but what I do know is I love it myself.
Yeah.
And I just find that it's incredibly exciting and it's expressive and, I mean, immersive. I mean, just like Colin said, you can't talk about it. It's foolish.
Yeah,
You
sure.
really
You
have
need
to experience it. But if you do, I mean...
One of the things that's been cool about utilizing the same format for music that we've been using in film and television for 5-6 years, well, more than that now, is we have really wide adoption in the consumer marketplace already, right? So I mentioned earlier Netflix; it's their standard deliverable and things like that. So this is getting to people's homes today, and to Matt's point, it's in fact getting to people's pockets today. So for a number of years now, the Samsung devices and Huawei and all of those manufacturers have actually been decoding Atmos on your cell phone.
Sure.
So it's a common deliverable that people can actually get hold of. So I guess unlike 5171 music, where you would have had to really clearly define a listening space in your house that was going to represent your music listening mode, that's becoming less and less true. So the part of the goal is to enable this for a wider adoption, and so that when Matt sat in his loft making the music in Atmos, he knows that his listeners can actually get that same very similar experience at home and on the go.
So I think that's when you brought up something I think that's really cool, and I wanted to ask a little bit about it, but the whole idea of consumer adoption, I think it's been really cool to see how Dolby has. I'm sure some of you guys out here have some Atmos sound bars at home. You guys have really been very good about working with manufacturers and working with folks to make sure that they have what they need to be able to make sure that stuff translates well. Now, as artists, and as you're an artist as a mixer too, making sure that what you guys have done translates well. So I want to say first kudos to you guys for doing that, and really excited to see what comes next. I mean, obviously we're all big fans of like going to trade shows like NAMM and such, but I think CES is also a pretty big one. And for me, back in January, that was what I was looking for. Was how much Dolby Atmos stuff am I going to see from all these different companies. So I'm really glad that's to me. Obviously we work on this side, on the creative side and kind of creating the music. But to me, I'm really watching that space to see what happens there, and I'm really excited to see that there's stuff happening.
So one of the cool things, I was sat in that chair this morning when you took the blanket off the S1, and I think one of the things that slipped by almost was that you now have Android support for the tablet that goes in there, and my workflow brain went ticking, and I went, oh, okay. So we've now got a device in the studio that people are going to mix on, and that will play an encoded Atmos file. So, all right, there's my QC path right there.
Ding. All right.
So it's and Dana asked me yesterday what more you could do, and it's actually. Avid are coming and bringing all of this stuff together anyway, and we're kind of fitting in with that. So the Matrix units and the integration and the new consoles and all of these things. Avid and Dolby Atmos have become inherently linked.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't say one without the other at this point, and that's really cool for us, and a really great opportunity for the artist community to engage with that, and we hope to see more going forward. Yeah,
well, we'll definitely do that, and for us, it's been a really amazing partnership as well, and we look forward to what's next. So we've got a few minutes. I think we'll take some questions from the audience. Let me go grab a mic, and let's see. Questions in the audience? All right, I'm going to see if I can cross over here. I'm going to come to you. Testing one. What's your name? Where are you from?
My name is Evan Lange. I'm from DC originally, but I'm here at Belmont as a student, graduating in December. So back to the topic of mass adoption. Obviously, we want to see Atmos being involved in the music space. Is Spotify or any of the other music streaming platforms a potential platform and option to get Atmos out there to a commercial, consumption platform?
There'll be distribution to the home this year.
Yep. There we go. All right. Easy enough.
I can't say more, I'm afraid.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks for your question. I saw another hand up back here somewhere. Where'd they go? No, they clamped up. All right. Oh, we got one over here. Oh, you're good. You're good. What's your name? Where you from?
I'm Terry Watson. I'm from Nashville. And I was curious if you could speak more to the deliverable, just what will actually be delivered from the studio to clients, to labels, to distribution.
Sure. I guess a good number of years ago, when object-based audio became really prevalent in the marketplace, we had our deliverable that was ready to go to cinemas in MXF and DCP format. We had a deliverable that was the .atmos or DAMF format. But the industry at large decided that wasn't good enough and got together and went, okay, we need a standard for delivering object-based audio and really wide channel deliveries to archive, ingest, encode. So they came up with an extension to the broadcast wave format called Audio Definition Model, ADM, that if you look through the specifications for OTT broadcast delivery and numerous other platforms, has become the industry standard. So what goes into the renderer and you record in your master file is the DAMF. And then from that, we have an export functionality in the renderer itself to convert that to the B-Wave ADM, which is a single B-Wave audio file with a number of audio channels in it, up to 128. And inside of the header for that, there's an XML chunk that describes all of the data that is relevant to that mix file. So where the object is located, what type of object it is, the size, all of that stuff is actually pushed into the header. And it actually becomes an interchange format as well as a delivery format. So in Pro Tools 12.8, when they introduced the integration, they actually offered an option to break back out of that ADM into a full Pro Tools session, a STEM session. And it will pull in all of the automation, all of the object assignments, any names that you've associated to those objects. So the metadata that exists in your Atmos master can be really useful going downstream. It effectively becomes a track list and track notes and description of what the overall intent of the project was.
Cool. Thank you. Any other questions? I think we've got some coming in. We got one here.
My question is on consumer adoption. Are there any, what developments are there in headphone technologies? People can buy sound bars, but a lot of people will consume music on their head while they're doing something else.
Sure. So I mentioned earlier that today, excuse me, the Samsung S9, S10 devices, Note 5, various other releases from other manufacturers, all will decode Dolby Atmos. A good portion of that is actually over headphones. So in the code for that, there's a Dolby Atmos button. You turn it on, and it will actually give you a binauralized virtualization of the Atmos mix. So it's available in market today, not just cell phone devices, but Xbox have implemented it, Windows Creator Edition. So you can get headphone experiences with Dolby Atmos virtualization in the marketplace today.
You have to go Android.
Yes. So Apple just announced that they've got support coming for Atmos decoding in Mac OS, iOS, iPad OS, whenever the next OS drops. That will be speaker-based.
Cool. Thank you. So I think we're going to wrap up here in just a second. So I want to make sure you guys fill up the session. You're able to get ready for the session breakout. I guess I don't need this anymore. Yeah, thank you guys for that. I think it's we wanted to make sure that we had an Atmos panel here. Obviously, Ceri and I, you and I have been talking a lot now, and certainly, Avid and Dolby. There's a really big and important partnership there. But beyond that, the idea that over the last few years, the adoption and the idea of Atmos for folks again typically tends to be post film, that whole thing. But we're really we're here and we're talking about music and the idea that we're, well, Matt, you're ahead of the curve. You've been doing it for years already. But the idea that we're going to really be able to, not going to be able to, we are able to really use this technology to really enhance and push out our music and give our music the space that really deserves, I think, is amazing. And I'm really excited, and I can't wait for what's next. I'll leave that there. But I think it's going to be really amazing, and we're very, very thankful. But I want to say thank you to our amazing panel, Colin, Matt, Ceri. Thank you guys very, very much. Give them a round of applause. Thank you, guys. So, of course, in about 32 and maybe 17, whatever, we're going to have Ceri and Colin are going to do a session breakout and kind of go through, I think, one of your mixes in Dolby Atmos right here in the room, which is going to be really awesome. So get yourself hydrated. Take a little bathroom, a bio break, whatever you need. Get something in your stomach and come back. We will be here. To everybody streaming live on Avid Link and on the web at avid.com. Thank you. Do the same. Make a cup of tea, cup of coffee. Do what you need to do. Thank you guys very much. We'll see you soon. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Colin, thank you so much.